The 5% Advantage. How Micro Habits Lead to Macro Success. Written by Ronnie Rowland. Published by Growth Literacy Lounge. Small disciplines repeated with consistency every day lead to great achievements gained slowly over time. John C. Maxwell. Success isn't about making giant leaps, it's about taking small, steady steps in the right direction. The problem is, we live in a world obsessed with instant results. We want overnight transformations, dramatic breakthroughs, and quick fixes. When we don't see immediate progress, we assume we're failing. But what if the real secret to success isn't about going big, it's about going small? Most people set goals with the best intentions. They decide to get in shape, save money, start a business, or become more productive. They dive in headfirst, fueled by motivation. But within weeks, sometimes even days, momentum fades, frustration sets in, and they quit. Not because they don't have what it takes, but because they tried to change too much, too fast. This book introduces a different approach, one that's backed by psychology, science, and real-world success stories. It's called the 5% Advantage. Instead of chasing massive change overnight, you'll learn how to make small, compounding improvements of just 5% each month. At first, 5% may not seem like much, but over time, these micro-habits create unstoppable momentum. Improving by just 5% a month leads to a 79% improvement in a year, not through extreme effort, but through sustainable, effortless progress. In the pages ahead, you'll learn how to design micro-habits that fit effortlessly into your life, track progress without overwhelm, and overcome the resistance that usually leads to failure. Whether you want to transform your health, finances, career, or mindset, the key isn't to do more, it's to do small things consistently. So if you're tired of setting big goals and falling short, it's time for a new strategy. One that doesn't rely on motivation but on practical, sustainable growth. One that doesn't demand perfection but rewards persistence. One that turns small daily actions into massive, long-term success. Your transformation starts now. Chapter 1. Why big goals fail and what works instead. We've all been there. You set a big goal, losing weight, starting a business, writing a book. You feel motivated, inspired, and ready to change your life. You create a plan, dive in with full force, and for a few days or weeks, everything feels possible. Then, reality hits. The workouts feel exhausting. The business idea seems overwhelming. The writing goal turns into frustration over a blank page. Before long, you fall back into old habits, feeling like a failure. This isn't a lack of effort or willpower. The problem isn't you, it's the way we've been trained to think about success. We assume that big goals require big action, and when we can't sustain that action, we burn out. The truth: most people fail because they start too big, not because they lack discipline. Take New Year's resolutions. Every year, millions of people set goals to transform their lives, yet research shows that 92% of resolutions fail within the first few months. Why? Because people aim for dramatic change instead of gradual progress. They try to overhaul everything at once instead of making small, sustainable adjustments. Consider two approaches to getting in shape. Person A decides to go to the gym 6 days a week, cut out all sugar, and run 5 miles every morning. Person B commits to just 1 push-up a day, something so small it feels ridiculous. Who's more likely to succeed? Most people assume Person A, but in reality Person B has the advantage. Their habit is effortless, easy to maintain, and most importantly, it gets them started. Once they drop down for 1 push-up, they often do more. That's how momentum is built. This is where the 5% advantage comes in. Instead of trying to change everything overnight, you focus on improving by just 5% each month. This small, incremental progress adds up fast, resulting in a 79% improvement in a year. Unlike unsustainable resolutions, 5% feels achievable, practical, and easy to maintain. James Clear, in Atomic Habits, explains that you do not rise to the level of your goals. You fall to the level of your systems. This means that success isn't about setting massive goals, it's about creating small, repeatable actions that lead to lasting change. Let's take a real-world example, the British cycling team. For over a century, they were nothing special, no major wins, no standout performances. Then, they hired a coach named Dave Brailsford, who introduced the philosophy of marginal gains, focusing on tiny 1% improvements in every area. They improved bike aerodynamics, optimized sleep, adjusted nutrition, and even found better pillows for recovery. These small, seemingly insignificant tweaks led to 5 Tour de France wins in 6 years and 14 Olympic gold medals. They didn't revolutionize the sport overnight, they mastered tiny, consistent improvements that compounded over time. This same principle applies to everything in life. If you try to write 1,000 words a day, you might burn out. But if you commit to just 50 words a day, you're more likely to build a consistent writing habit. If you set a goal to read a book a week, it might feel overwhelming. But reading just 1 page a day is effortless and often leads to reading more. The secret isn't motivation. It's designing success in a way that makes it easy to show up. That's what the 5% advantage is all about, shifting from an all-or-nothing approach to small, compounding wins. So here's the challenge. Instead of chasing massive transformations, ask yourself, what's one small, almost effortless habit I can commit to today? Start there. Because once you start small, the rest takes care of itself. Chapter 2. The Science of Micro-Habits and the Power of Tiny Gains. Success isn't about making one big change, it's about making tiny, repeatable improvements that compound over time. The problem is, most of us don't trust small actions. We believe that big results require big effort, and that's where we go wrong. Science tells us otherwise. Tiny, seemingly insignificant habits are the foundation of lasting success, and once we understand why, everything changes. Let's start with the way habits are formed. Every action we take is influenced by a cue routine reward loop, a cycle identified by neuroscientists studying habit formation. The cue is what triggers the behavior, the routine is the action itself, and the reward is what reinforces it. For example, if you wake up and smell coffee cue, you pour yourself a cup routine, and then enjoy the taste and alertness reward. Over time, this loop automates itself. This is why habits, good or bad, become second nature. Now, here's the key insight: the smaller the habit, the easier it is to embed into this loop. If a habit feels effortless, the brain encounters no resistance. That's why committing to 1 push-up a day feels manageable, while committing to an hour-long workout feels overwhelming. When a habit is too big, it triggers resistance. But when it's small enough, it slips past our brain's natural defense mechanisms. James Clear, in Atomic Habits, explains how tiny improvements lead to exponential growth. He illustrates that if you improve by just 1% a day, you become 37 times better in a year. The 5% advantage follows the same logic, but with an even more practical approach. Because improving by 5% per month feels far more achievable than a daily 1% increase. Consider the case of the British cycling team. Before they adopted the principle of marginal gains, they were average at best. Then their coach introduced tiny micro-improvements, adjusting bike seats, improving hand-washing habits, optimizing nutrition. Each change was small, but together they added up. The result? Within a few years they dominated the world stage. This principle applies everywhere. Look at Jeff Bezos and Amazon. Instead of trying to revolutionize e-commerce overnight, Amazon focused on micro-optimizations, speeding up website load times by milliseconds, improving packaging efficiency, and in streamlining logistics. None of these changes seemed groundbreaking alone, but over time, they led to Amazon's market dominance. The power of micro-habits lies in their compounding effect. Most people expect immediate results and give up when they don't see them. But the impact of small changes isn't linear, it's exponential. At first, the progress is barely noticeable, like watching water slowly heat up. Then, suddenly it reaches a boiling point, and transformation happens. This is why most people fail. They work hard for a short period, don't see instant results, and quit too soon. But those who understand the lag effect of micro-habits keep going. They know that tiny improvements don't show results right away, but over time, they create unstoppable momentum. So how do you make this work for you? The key is starting ridiculously small. Instead of setting a goal to run 5 miles a day, start with putting on your running shoes. Instead of committing to writing 1,000 words, start with just 50 words. Once you begin, you'll naturally do more than the minimum. The hardest part of any habit isn't doing it, it's starting. When you start small, you remove the mental barriers that hold you back. The 5% advantage isn't about doing more, it's about doing less, consistently. It's about hacking human psychology to make progress inevitable. By focusing on small, repeatable actions, you're not just changing what you do, you're changing how you think. You're rewiring your brain to expect continuous, compounding growth. So here's your challenge. Pick one tiny micro-habit. Make it so easy you can't fail. Do it every day, even when you don't feel like it. Because once you master micro-habits, the path to success isn't just possible, it's inevitable. Chapter 3. The 5% Advantage, a Sustainable Growth Model. Most people fail at self-improvement because they focus on intensity over consistency. They go all in, push themselves too hard, and burn out before seeing real results. But success isn't about massive leaps, it's about small, sustainable progress that compounds over time. That's the core of the 5% advantage. Imagine improving by just 5% each month. At first it seems insignificant, but over a year, that's a 79% increase. Not through massive effort, but by stacking small wins consistently. This method is sustainable, achievable, and incredibly effective because it aligns with how real growth happens. Think about how professional athletes train. They don't try to double their strength overnight. Instead, they focus on tiny, incremental improvements. A sprinter shaves off milliseconds, a weightlifter increases by small amounts, a basketball player refines their shot by adjusting hand position. These improvements seem minor in isolation, but over time they separate champions from the average. The same principle applies everywhere. Look at Jeff Bezos and Amazon. Instead of trying to dominate e-commerce overnight, they focused on small optimizations, making checkout faster, improving warehouse logistics, fine-tuning customer service. These micro-improvements compounded into one of the most valuable companies in history. The reason the 5% advantage works is simple: it's sustainable. Unlike drastic life overhauls that lead to burnout, 5% progress feels manageable. You don't have to wake up at 5 a.m., work out for 2 hours, or cut out entire food groups. You just improve slightly, month after month. The psychological advantage is huge, because progress feels effortless. You're more likely to stick with it. This is the opposite of the New Year's resolution trap. People set huge goals, go hard for a few weeks, then burn out. By February, the gym is empty again. The 5% method avoids this failure cycle by keeping goals small, realistic, and easy to maintain. Instead of working out an hour a day, start with just 5 minutes. Instead of writing 1,000 words, start with 50 words. Instead of saving 20% of your income, start with $1 a day. These small shifts lead to big change because they're consistent. The key to making the 5% advantage work is tracking progress without overwhelm. Most people fail at self-improvement because they only focus on big milestones, losing 20 pounds, making 6 figures, writing a book. But these goals take time, and when progress feels slow, motivation fades. The solution? Measure backwards, not forwards. Instead of focusing on how far you are from the goal, track how much better you've gotten. Look at how athletes track performance. A runner doesn't just focus on finishing a marathon, they track small improvements in speed, endurance, and form. A musician doesn't just focus on playing a complex piece, they improve by mastering one small section at a time. This is how long-term success is built. The mistake most people make is expecting results too soon. Small improvements don't show immediate impact, but over time, they create an unstoppable force. It's like watching ice melt. Nothing seems to happen at first. Then, suddenly the temperature shifts and everything changes. The same happens with habits. The first few weeks feel slow, but once momentum builds, progress becomes effortless. This is why patience is key. The biggest breakthroughs happen after months of consistency, not days of intensity. Most people quit before the compounding effect kicks in. But those who stick with small, steady progress always wins in the long run. Here's your challenge. Pick one area to improve by 5% this month. It could be fitness, finances, learning a skill, or productivity. Make the improvement so small it feels easy, then repeat it next month. Watch how these micro improvements transform your life over time. Chapter 4. The first micro habit: building momentum with tiny wins. The hardest part of any habit isn't the action itself, it's starting. Once you begin, momentum takes over. The problem is that most people set habits that feel overwhelming, so they never get past the starting line. The key to lasting change isn't willpower, motivation, or discipline. It's designing habits so small they're impossible to fail. Most people fail because they aim too high too fast. They decide to work out an hour a day, write 1,000 words daily, or cut out all junk food. These habits seem great in theory, but they require too much effort to sustain. The brain resists drastic change because it views it as a threat. That's why we need to start ridiculously small. When a habit is so easy that it feels silly not to do it, resistance disappears. Consider the one push-up rule. Instead of committing to a full workout, commit to just one push-up a day. It sounds too small to matter, but that's the point. Once you drop down for one push-up, you're likely to do more. You remove the hardest part, getting started. This principle applies everywhere. If you want to become a writer, don't start with 1,000 words a day. Start with just 50 words. If you want to read more, don't aim for a book a week. Read 1 page a day. These tiny actions bypass the brain's resistance and create a low-friction path to consistency. James Clear calls this the 2-minute rule, making a new habit take no more than 2 minutes to complete. Instead of go for a run, start with put on running shoes. Instead of meditate for 30 minutes, start with take one deep breath. Once the habit begins, it often naturally expands. Look at Jerry Seinfeld. He built his comedy career by committing to writing 1 joke a day. He didn't aim to write a full routine every day, he focused on showing up consistently. Over time, his small daily habit turned into a legendary career. Micro habits work because they remove the pressure of success. If your goal is to write 50 words, you'll probably write more. But even if you stop at 50, you've still succeeded. Success breeds confidence, and confidence fuels momentum. This is how small wins compound into major breakthroughs. The key to making micro habits stick is anchoring them to an existing routine. This is called habit stacking. Instead of trying to fit a new habit into your day, attach it to something you already do. Want to start flossing? Stack it onto brushing your teeth. Want to practice gratitude? Say one thing you're grateful for before drinking coffee. Habit stacking makes new behaviors effortless because they become part of your natural routine. Another trick is reducing friction. If you want to eat healthier, make sure fruit is visible on the counter. If you want to work out, lay out your gym clothes the night before. The easier you make a habit, the more likely you are to do it. Most people overestimate how much they can change in a week and underestimate how much they can change in a year. Small habits feel insignificant at first, but over time they create massive transformation. The hardest part is trusting the process long enough to see results. So here's your challenge. Pick one micro habit, make it so small that it feels effortless. Anchor it to something you already do. Reduce friction to make success automatic. Commit to it for the next week. Because once you master starting small, momentum takes care of the rest. Chapter 5. Stacking micro habits for maximum impact. Building one micro habit is powerful, but stacking multiple micro habits together creates a system for effortless success. This is where momentum turns into transformation. Instead of trying to overhaul your routine overnight, you gradually layer small habits until they become second nature. Habit stacking works because it builds on existing behaviors. Your brain already follows patterns throughout the day: waking up, brushing your teeth, making coffee, checking your phone. By attaching a new habit to one that already exists, you eliminate the need for motivation. You're not creating a new habit from scratch, you're piggybacking on something familiar. The key to habit stacking is pairing new habits with consistent triggers. If you drink coffee every morning, that's a natural cue. If you drive to work, that's another. These daily actions become anchors for new habits. Want to start reading? Attach it to your coffee routine. Want to improve posture? Pair it with sitting at your desk. The habit becomes automatic because it's tied to something you already do. Take flossing as an example. Most people struggle with it because they treat it as an extra step. But if you tell yourself, after I brush my teeth, I will floss one tooth, it feels effortless. One tooth leads to two, then a full habit forms. James Clear, in Atomic Habits, explains that habit stacking follows a natural sequence. If you want to meditate, do it after waking up. If you want to drink more water, do it before meals. The smoother the transition, the easier the habit sticks. Consider an athlete's routine. Before a game, they don't just stretch, they follow a series of stacked habits. Listening to music, warming up, focusing on breathing, these rituals prepare their mind and body for peak performance. You can apply the same principle to your own habits. The best habit stacks are built on momentum. Start with one small habit, then gradually layer new ones on top. Imagine you want to build a morning routine. You might start with 1. Wake up and drink a glass of water. 2. Stretch for 30 seconds. 3. Write one sentence in a journal. None of these actions take more than a minute, but together, they create a structured morning. Over time, you can expand each habit naturally. Stretching becomes 5 minutes, journaling turns into deeper reflection. The key is allowing habits to grow without force. Another approach is habit chaining, linking multiple habits together into a sequence. For example, after I wake up, I drink water. After I drink water, I stretch. After I stretch, I meditate. This creates a domino effect where one habit triggers the next. Once the first action happens, the rest follow effortlessly. To make habit stacking work, reduce friction between steps. If you want to read more, place a book by your coffee maker. If you want to exercise, keep workout clothes in plain sight. The fewer barriers, the more automatic the habit becomes. Habit stacking also works in reverse, removing bad habits by breaking their chain. If you want to stop checking your phone in bed, charge it outside the bedroom. If you want to eat healthier, keep junk food out of reach. Disrupting the sequence makes unwanted habits fade. Most people fail at building habits because they rely on motivation. But motivation is unreliable. The secret is designing your environment and routines so success happens automatically. Once you understand habit stacking, you no longer need discipline, you just need the right sequence. Here's your challenge. Pick one habit you already do daily. Stack a new micro habit onto it. Keep it so small that success feels inevitable. Because when you master stacking habits, transformation happens naturally. Chapter 6. Tracking progress without overwhelm. Most people fail at building habits because they don't see immediate results. They start strong, but when progress feels slow, they lose motivation. The problem isn't effort, it's how they measure success. Instead of tracking perfection, the key is tracking progress in a way that keeps momentum alive. The biggest mistake people make is expecting results too soon. When you go to the gym for a week, you don't instantly see muscles. When you save money for a month, you don't suddenly feel wealthy. Progress is often invisible in the early stages, which makes it easy to quit. But just because you don't see it doesn't mean it's not happening. The key is to trust the compounding effect of small wins. Tracking progress isn't about being perfect. It's about staying consistent enough to see results. The best way to do this is by focusing on completion, not performance. Instead of asking, "Did I do it perfectly?" ask, "Did I do it at all?" Success isn't measured by intensity, it's measured by showing up. One of the simplest tracking methods is the Seinfeld strategy. The comedian Jerry Seinfeld committed to writing one joke a day. To keep himself accountable, he used a wall calendar and put a red X on every day he wrote. The goal? Never break the chain. The longer the streak, the stronger the motivation to keep going. This method works because it builds momentum visually. When you see a streak forming, you don't want to break it. Even if you're tired, doing just the minimum keeps the chain alive. Whether it's exercise, reading, or writing, tracking completion over performance removes the pressure of being perfect. Another simple method is the one-sentence journal. Instead of writing full journal entries, Commit to writing one sentence per day about your progress. This keeps self-reflection easy and prevents overwhelm. Over time, you'll have a record of growth without the burden of extensive journaling. For those who prefer technology, habit tracking apps provide an easy way to measure progress. Apps like Habitica, Streaks, or Way of Life help keep habits visible. The key is simplicity. If tracking becomes a chore, it won't last. Tracking isn't just about motivation, it also provides evidence of progress. The brain is wired to forget small wins, which makes it feel like nothing is happening. But when you track micro improvements, you see proof that you're moving forward. Even if it's just a 5% gain, it's progress. It's also important to measure backwards, not forwards. Most people focus on how far they are from their goal, which can be discouraging. Instead, look at how far you've come. If you've improved by 5% this month, you're ahead of where you were. Small wins, when tracked, fuel confidence. Another key to effective tracking is having a flexible mindset. Life happens. There will be days when you miss a habit. The rule is simple: never skip twice. Missing one day is normal, but skipping two creates a new habit, the habit of quitting. The goal isn't to be perfect, it's to get back on track quickly. Tracking also helps you adjust your approach. If you notice a habit isn't sticking, don't assume you've failed. Instead, make it easier. Reduce the commitment until it feels effortless. If 10 minutes of exercise is too much, do 2 minutes. If reading a chapter feels hard, read just one paragraph. The key is to keep showing up. Here's your challenge. Choose one simple tracking method: a habit tracker, a calendar streak, or a one-sentence journal. Make it easy, make it visible, and commit to it for the next month. Because when you track progress without overwhelm, success becomes automatic. Chapter 7. Overcoming resistance and staying consistent. Starting a habit is easy. Sticking with it is where most people fail. Resistance shows up in different forms: lack of motivation, excuses, or unexpected life events. The key to long-term success isn't avoiding resistance, it's learning how to push through it with minimal effort. Most people think they fail because they lack discipline. The real reason is that they rely on motivation, which is unreliable. Motivation fluctuates. It's high when you start something new but fades when results aren't immediate. That's why waiting to feel like it is a losing strategy. The secret to consistency is removing the need for motivation altogether. One way to do this is by reducing friction. If a habit feels difficult, it's less likely to stick. But when you make it effortless, resistance disappears. Want to work out? Set your gym clothes out the night before. Want to eat healthier? Keep junk food out of sight. The goal is to make good habits easier to start and bad habits harder to continue. Another way to beat resistance is by using the 2-minute rule. This rule states that when you feel resistance, commit to just 2 minutes of the habit. Instead of write a chapter, just write one sentence. Instead of run 3 miles, just put on your shoes. Once you start, momentum takes over, and you usually do more than planned. James Clear describes this as standardizing before optimizing. Before you worry about doing something well, focus on doing it at all. The biggest mistake people make is trying to be perfect instead of being consistent. A messy workout is better than no workout. A short reading session is better than skipping entirely. Another form of resistance is negative self-talk. People tell themselves, "I don't have time," or "I'm just not disciplined." These statements become self-fulfilling. The solution is identity-based habits, shifting from "I need to exercise" to "I am someone who moves every day." When habits align with your identity, resistance fades. Environment also plays a huge role in consistency. If you're surrounded by distractions, staying on track is harder. That's why social accountability is so powerful. When you share your goals with someone, you create external pressure to follow through. This is why workout partners, writing groups, and study buddies work so well. Another way to maintain consistency is by using the never skip twice rule. Missing one day is normal. Missing 2 days in a row is the start of a new habit, the habit of quitting. When you miss a habit, don't dwell on it. Instead, focus on doing the next small action to get back on track. It's also important to plan for obstacles. Most people assume they'll be consistent under perfect conditions, but what happens when you get busy? When you're tired, when unexpected events happen, the best approach is to have a when-then plan. When I get home late, then I'll do 5 minutes of exercise instead of my usual workout. This keeps you moving forward instead of quitting entirely. Small rewards also help sustain habits. The brain craves immediate gratification, which is why long-term goals feel hard to stick with. Create mini milestones. After 5 days of consistency, reward yourself with something enjoyable. This keeps your brain engaged and looking forward to progress. The final key to overcoming resistance is embracing imperfection. Most people quit when they miss a few days because they assume they've failed. But habits aren't all or nothing. They're about getting back on track faster. The real difference between successful and unsuccessful people isn't that they never fail, it's that they don't let failure stop them. Here's your challenge: pick one habit you've struggled to stay consistent with. Identify what resistance looks like for you. Then, choose one strategy: reducing friction, using the 2-minute rule, accountability, or planning for obstacles. Because once you learn how to push through resistance, consistency becomes effortless. Chapter 8: The role of environment in habit formation. Most people think success is about willpower, but willpower is weak. The real driver of habits is environment. Your surroundings influence your behavior far more than motivation ever will. When you design your environment to support good habits, success becomes effortless. Think about how often your habits are triggered by what's around you. You walk into a kitchen and see cookies on the counter. You eat one without thinking. You sit on the couch and see the remote. You turn on the TV. These actions aren't deliberate. They're automatic responses to your environment. If you want to change your habits, change what surrounds you. The easiest way to build better habits is by making good behaviors easy and bad behaviors difficult. This is called choice architecture, designing your space so the best choice is the most convenient one. If you want to eat healthier, keep fruit visible and junk food out of sight. If you want to read more, place a book on your nightstand instead of your phone. Small environmental tweaks create effortless change. The British cycling team used this strategy to go from mediocre to dominant. Instead of focusing only on training, they improved tiny environmental factors, better bike seats, optimized hand-washing habits, and even bringing their own pillows to hotels for better sleep. These minor adjustments gave them a huge competitive edge. You can apply the same principle to your own life. One powerful technique is habit placement, pairing an environment with a specific habit. If you want to work out, create a dedicated exercise space. If you want to study, set up a distraction-free desk. When certain environments become linked to specific actions, habits become automatic. Another trick is reducing friction for good habits and increasing friction for bad ones. If you want to exercise, lay out your gym clothes the night before. If you want to stop checking social media, log out of apps or keep your phone in another room. Even small amounts of friction, adding an extra step, make bad habits less tempting. Your social environment also plays a huge role. We naturally mirror the behaviors of people around us. If your friends eat junk food, you're more likely to do the same. If they read books, exercise, or build businesses, those behaviors become normal for you too. Surrounding yourself with people who embody the habits you want to build makes those habits easier. James Clear calls this the proximity effect. We adopt the habits of those we spend time with. If you want to get fit, join a group of people who prioritize health. If you want to write more, connect with writers. Success isn't just about personal effort, it's about who and what surrounds you. Accountability is another environmental factor that strengthens habits. Simply telling someone your goal increases your chances of following through. This is why workout partners, study groups, and coaching programs work. When others expect you to show up, you're less likely to quit. Your digital environment matters too. Most people are distracted by endless notifications, social media, and emails. If your phone is always within reach, you'll instinctively check it. A simple fix: make distractions inconvenient, turn off notifications, use website blockers, or leave your phone in another room during focused work. Small adjustments like these dramatically improve focus. Many people assume they need more discipline when what they really need is a better system. Willpower fades, but a well-designed environment makes good habits automatic. The secret isn't trying harder, it's designing a world where success is the default option. Here's your challenge. Pick one habit you want to improve. Adjust your environment to make it easier. Whether it's rearranging your space, changing your social circle, or reducing distractions, small tweaks create lasting change. Because when your environment supports your habits, success becomes effortless. Chapter 9. The social influence of micro-habits. Your habits are not just a reflection of your choices, they are a reflection of the people around you. Whether you realize it or not, your behaviors are shaped by social influence. The way you eat, exercise, work, and even think is largely determined by the groups you associate with. If you want to change your habits, one of the most powerful things you can do is change your social environment. Humans are wired for belonging. We naturally imitate the behaviors of those we spend the most time with. This is called the proximity effect. The closer we are to a group, the more likely we are to adopt their habits. If your friends prioritize health, you're more likely to eat well and exercise. If they focus on business growth, you'll naturally start thinking like an entrepreneur. Your habits don't exist in isolation, they exist within the culture of your social circle. One of the biggest reasons people fail at habit change is social friction. If you try to build a habit that goes against the norms of your environment, resistance is inevitable. Want to eat healthier, but your friends love fast food? It's going to be tough. Want to read more, but no one around you values learning? You'll feel out of place. This doesn't mean you need to cut people out of your life, but it does mean you need to be intentional about who you spend time with. James Clear puts it this way: join a group where your desired behavior is the normal behavior. If you want to become a runner, join a running club. If you want to get better at writing, find a community of writers. The goal is not to force yourself into habits, but to surround yourself with people who make those habits feel natural. When the group's identity aligns with your goals, your habits will stick effortlessly. One of the simplest ways to use social influence to your advantage is accountability. When you make a commitment to someone else, you are far more likely to follow through. This is why personal trainers, mastermind groups, and business coaches are so effective. When someone expects you to show up, you don't want to let them down. Even a simple habit like sending a daily progress update to a friend can significantly boost consistency. Another powerful strategy is the identity shift. Instead of thinking, I want to exercise more, start thinking, I am the kind of person who exercises. When you make your habits part of your identity, you naturally seek out people who reinforce that identity. If you view yourself as a reader, you'll be drawn to book clubs. If you see yourself as an entrepreneur, you'll surround yourself with like-minded people. Identity-based habits create long-term change because they are who you are, not just what you do. But social influence can work against you just as easily as it can work for you. If the people around you have habits that conflict with your goals, progress becomes harder. The key is minimizing exposure to negative influences while maximizing exposure to positive ones. If you struggle with social media addiction, spend more time with people who prioritize deep work. If you're trying to save money, limit time with people who encourage reckless spending. Your habits will always be shaped by the company you keep. Technology can also be used to create virtual accountability. Online communities, habit tracking groups, and even public commitments on social media can reinforce habits. The key is to make your progress visible to others. When people know you're working towards something, you're far more likely to stay consistent. Here's your challenge: identify one habit you want to reinforce. Find a group, community, or accountability partner who embodies that habit. Make a commitment, whether it's joining a fitness class, a writing group, or simply telling a friend your goal. Because when you surround yourself with the right people, success becomes inevitable. Chapter 10. Micro habits in business career growth. Success in business and career growth isn't about making one big move. It's about making small, consistent improvements over time. The most successful professionals and entrepreneurs don't rely on overnight breakthroughs. They build momentum through micro habits, small, repeatable actions that give them an edge. Consider Jeff Bezos and Amazon. The company didn't dominate e-commerce overnight. Instead, they focused on tiny process optimizations, reducing delivery times by seconds, streamlining customer service, and improving website speed by milliseconds. Each change seemed insignificant alone, but over time, they compounded into an unstoppable business model. The same principle applies to personal career growth. Most people set ambitious career goals, getting a promotion, starting a business, or mastering a skill, but struggle to follow through because they focus on big results instead of small habits. The key to sustained progress is breaking down career success into tiny, manageable improvements. One of the most effective micro-habits in career growth is continuous learning. Top performers don't wait for formal training, they develop the habit of learning a little every day. Reading just 5 pages a day adds up to 6 books a year. Listening to a 10-minute podcast daily leads to over 60 hours of learning annually. Small habits like these create a knowledge advantage that compounds over time. Another powerful habit is networking in micro moments. People assume networking requires attending big events or making bold moves. In reality, it's built on small, consistent interactions. Sending one thoughtful email a week, commenting on a colleague's post, or checking in with an old contact takes minutes but leads to long-term opportunities. Many high achievers also use the 2-minute rule to avoid procrastination. Instead of waiting for perfect conditions to start a project, they commit to just 2 minutes of work. This eliminates the mental barrier of starting, and more often than not, 2 minutes turns into deeper focus. Whether it's writing an email, updating a resume, or brainstorming business ideas, starting small leads to consistent productivity. Time management is another area where micro habits make a massive impact. Most people waste hours reacting to emails, jumping between tasks, or getting distracted. High performers protect their focus by making tiny adjustments, checking emails at set times instead of constantly, using a 5-minute planning ritual each morning, or setting a 25-minute timer for deep work. These micro habits prevent distractions and maximize productivity. Warren Buffett follows a simple but powerful micro habit, saying no to most things. He protects his time by committing only to what truly matters. The habit of pausing before saying yes is a small adjustment that leads to massive productivity gains. Learning to prioritize in micro decisions prevents overwhelm and ensures focus on high-impact work. Another underrated micro habit is tracking small wins. Success in business and career growth isn't always visible day to day, which makes it easy to feel stuck. Keeping a done list instead of just a to-do list helps build momentum. Writing down 3 things accomplished each day reinforces progress and prevents burnout. Adapting to change is another crucial skill built through micro habits. Industries evolve, and the most successful professionals are those who develop tiny habits of adaptability, reading industry news for 5 minutes a day, testing new tools once a month, or reflecting on lessons learned each week. Small steps like these ensure long-term resilience in an unpredictable world. The key to integrating micro habits in business and career growth is consistency over intensity. 1 hour of learning once a month won't create real growth, but 5 minutes daily will. A single networking event won't build strong relationships, but one message a week will. The compound effect of small habits is what separates those who stagnate from those who continuously level up. Here's your challenge: identify one tiny career habit that aligns with your goals. Make it so small it feels effortless, whether it's reading for 5 minutes, sending one email, or planning your day before checking messages. Because in business and career growth, the people who master micro habits are the ones who achieve macro success. Chapter 11. The long-term impact, from micro habits to macro success. Most people overestimate what they can achieve in a week and underestimate what they can achieve in a year. This is why so many people start strong but give up when results don't come fast enough. Real success isn't about short-term intensity, it's about long-term consistency. The true power of micro habits is not in what they do today, but in what they create over time. Think about the difference between an ice cube at 31 degrees and one at 33 degrees. To the naked eye, nothing changes at first. The cube stays frozen, even as the temperature rises. Then, suddenly it crosses a threshold, and everything shifts. The same happens with habits. For weeks or months, it may seem like nothing is happening. Then, without warning, the results explode. James Clear calls this the plateau of latent potential, the period where effort feels invisible. This is where most people quit. They assume they're failing when, in reality, they are 1 degree away from transformation. The people who stick with micro habits long enough to cross the threshold are the ones who experience massive breakthroughs. Warren Buffett's fortune wasn't built by making one big investment, it was built through consistent, compounding gains over decades. The same applies to fitness, business, relationships, and personal growth. The biggest success stories aren't based on talent alone, they're based on people who mastered the art of showing up, even when progress seems slow. One of the best real-world examples of long-term micro-habit success is the British cycling team. Before they embraced marginal gains, they were stuck in mediocrity. But they trusted the process. They optimized training, recovery, nutrition, and even sleep. For years, progress was barely noticeable. Then, suddenly they dominated the sport, winning multiple Olympic gold medals and Tour de France titles. The long-term impact of micro-habits is most visible in hindsight. If you write just 50 words a day, you won't feel like an author at first. But in a year, that's over 18,000 words, half a book. If you save just $5 a day, it won't seem like much, but in a decade, you'll have thousands of dollars. Small actions may not feel significant today, but they shape who you become tomorrow. One of the biggest shifts happens when micro-habits turn into identity-based habits. At first, you might force yourself to write, exercise, or save money, but over time you stop thinking about it. You no longer just try to be productive, you are productive. You don't attempt to be disciplined, you embody discipline. When habits become part of who you are, the results take care of themselves. The problem is that most people chase results instead of chasing systems. They want a six-pack without focusing on daily exercise. They want financial freedom without focusing on tiny spending habits. They want success without the small, consistent work that leads to it. But the people who win long-term are those who commit to the system, not just the goal. Another key to long-term success is adapting habits over time. What works in the beginning may not work forever. As you grow, your habits must evolve with you. This is why self-reflection is essential. Checking in on your progress, adjusting your habits, and setting new micro-goals ensures that you don't plateau. It's easy to get impatient. The modern world thrives on instant gratification, but those who embrace the power of delayed gratification, who trust in small, compounding wins, are the ones who achieve extraordinary results. The secret isn't doing more, it's doing small things consistently for long enough to see the impact. Here's your challenge. Look ahead 1 year. What's one habit you could start today that, if repeated daily, would change your life a year from now? Pick something small. Commit to it. Because the difference between those who succeed and those who don't isn't massive effort, it's the ability to stay consistent when progress seems invisible. Take care, and be well.